All right, as we can see here, lovely friend of mine when he was helping at a farm clean out the barn, found it in the corner, recognized it, and here we are. This is an old school coal forge with a hand blower system. And overall, minus the plate, which has been repaired, and that's gonna be the main issue with this project, we're gonna get this thing rolling, because I do need it to be able to go out of my shop. I don't have good enough ventilation for this. Also, just louder in a building and it's nicer outside. And we're gonna have to repair this crack. Well, maybe not repair, more reinforce. So this is gonna be me restoring these two pieces into one lovely coal forge. As you can see, this is the pan and it's already been welded once. Now, this is actually cast iron, which causes a bunch of problems because it is notorious when it comes to trying to repair. So I'm not even gonna try and weld it. What I am gonna do instead is I am going to cut a plate underneath it and just reinforce this crack. We're gonna just sand this down first, see what we get, because I am going to fill this with heat resistant epoxy to try and give it a little more strength, but I need to get rid of all this paint. Now, here's the issue, this is old, I don't know this paint, so I'm gonna mask up because I am worried there might be something in there that I'm not gonna wanna breathe in.
Okay, so you can see right here, I'm just playing out a bunch of different types of lines here, and I'm just making sure everything's nice and square. This metal is incredibly thick, so cutting it is going to kind of suck even with the zip disc and a grinder. So I'm just making sure I know exactly where I'm cutting. And to draw a straight line, you always have to have more than 2 lines. So that's just kind of a general rule there. You can see here I'm just using now carpenter square to join up all the lines. Even though you can assume that this metal is straight, never assume an edge is, and that was why I did multiple lines, so that I could use a carpenter square and just line it all up in the end so it's nice and straight. And so here I am right now just cutting out all the metal using the zip disc, and of course I don't actually want to cut my hands, so here is me just grinding off all the edges. And yeah, nothing too magical there, but you know, safety first. And as you can see, I tend to work without gloves, so yeah, grinding the edges was important. I need to trace off all the existing holes because I want to put as few holes as I humanly can at this point into this cast iron. It's also a pain in the butt to drill. So yeah, as you can see here, I did cut an edge off, and that does flit with the profile up there. You can see actually, if you look at the front of that one leg, there's actually a little extension that I wanted the whole piece to line up with perfectly. I wanted to make sure all my measurements and everything was square because we need this plate to line up. Well, okay, not really line up, this is my perfectionism coming out. I just wanted to make sure the metal was in the right places to reinforce. I just took a Sharpie, traced out the holes that already exist, as we are going to try and reuse as much as we can. This is the nice thing about having a small drill press. I was able to actually drill the closer to the edge holes, pre-drill them here on the metal. Here I am with the pre-existing holes, just putting the bolt in so that at this point I can start to line everything up so that no hole goes unmatched. So now all I'm doing is drilling out the remaining holes by hand. If you know cast iron, it's not a fun process. Make sure you punch using a center punch into the metal. That will allow it to grip. Use a nice new sharp drill bit, and it's just slow and steady. Here we can see I'm just inspecting the holes, and now I actually have to cut out that center hole because there's no way I'm doing that with the cast irons there. That will just not be a good idea. So again, I just used a zip disc. I did not go for a perfect circle because I'm just reinforcing the base, and the circle's actually in good shape. So I cut out essentially an octagon, leaving as much material as you can see from the holes. All right, so now that we've got that hole punched out, I'm gonna make a very simple frame. This was just some rough cut fur or rig mat I had laying around my house, and it's the good start of a good base. Now what I did was I basically just cut some pieces here, measured out the frame of everything, and just started screwing it all together at this point. And we can see the sun's kind of making the video. So here's me using fireproof paint to allow this wood to resist. I know it's not fireproof, but the hope, well, actually not the hope, the plan is the fire stays in that bowl. So this is just a wheeling base, not actually fire resistant. This is the point where I am doing the final torque of the plate to the bottom. I've given it one more good little sand. You can see a little bit here, but cast iron is just finicky. I need to get bare metal at this point because I want to fill those cracks in, because that's what's going to give me my bond. Even though this epoxy at this point I think is superficial with that plate being there, it's still just a very good idea. This is metal heat resistant epoxy, so it's perfect for this job. Again, I actually think this is kind of redundant because that plate's going to hold all the weight, but I had it, so yeah. You can see here I went and got some wheels for our floating forge, and this is what's going to allow me to roll it outside, and this is why I just used some wood. Eventually I might do a metal frame. Now it's just a fact of mounting this. Now I was going to do some of the work while it was standing, but it's easier when everything's on wheels, so I just measured it up, made it nice, and put a couple lug bolts into there so that it does not move around. Now I'm going to give this plate that the epoxy has dried a nice just coat of that black enamel fireproof coating. I think it's kind of pointless, but yeah. And here I could have stripped the old paint off, but it was actually already in good shape, and I just thought I had a little extra, so I gave it a good coat. Here you can see me attempting to get this lined up. Sometimes working alone in a shop does suck, but I just used 2x4 to brace it. I then went out and cut some steel legs so that it could hold it up. Now you might notice I'm not putting 4 legs in. I might later, but at this point I think it's more than stable enough because I actually do bolt that fire pit into the frame itself. And as you can see here, I'm just re-drilling out the holes and bolting that fire pit right onto the blower housing. Now, the one problem I did notice is those legs, while it's heavy and weighted, I didn't want them to have a chance to move. I also realized way too late that I didn't have a large enough spade bit, and this is not this wooden little is not my permanent home for this. This is just the first iteration, so I just quickly notched out a piece of some out of wood and just put them in place so that those legs won't move. And for those of you saying, well, they might move out, I'm like, yeah, they could. This is not the permanent wheel station, but this is just to get it going and for me to see how I like using Coal Forge, because a lot of this setup is going to be improve as I work on it. So the final problem is we can see that gap between where the fire is going to be and how it could get down to that wood. So we need to fix that. And the easiest way I could have thought of was insulation. Problem is expensive. So what I did, I went and got some fire bricks, and you can see here a little trick of mine. I just drilled a hole through there. I actually screwed it to the table at the height of the brick, and I split the difference of that pipe in half, and I just drew a circle. Now the next part, what I'm gonna do is, this is not for beginners. I've done it a few times. It's not something I'm an expert at, but slow and steady wins the race. Please, proper tools at this stage is probably the right stage. But what I did is I have old chisels that I call my just junker chisels, and those are not for fine woodworking. They've had their time in the sun, and I just slowly but surely chipped out the circle. And with this, you have to be incredibly careful that you don't go too hard or you can split the brick in half, and you always have to cut relief, making sure everything is nice and happy. As you can see here, it's still a little rough because I did do it by hand. I did take a sander and make it a little nicer in certain spots so that it looked good. But now we can see, yes, the fire could get down there, but we're going to build up the coal on that side, and the fire brick is going to hold it out. If I notice anything there, I will probably in the end have to do something else, but I wanted to not make it permanent because, as I keep saying, this is version 1. Now that the fire brick's out, I'm going to give the legs and everything else a final coating of the fireproof enamel. This was a point where I was just, I don't know, I was enjoying it. As you can see, I'm wearing not really work clothes because A, I wanted to get this video done. B, I just got excited to get this done, and spray painting is not in an open shop is not exactly the most unsafe thing of all time.
Well, that about wraps this up. I am not going to be touching this bell housing. It works perfect, and when you have something old and it's working, you kind of don't want to take it apart because you never know what might be inside, but it's running very smooth after I put a bit of grease on the grease nipple, and we're getting tons of air out here. And yeah, so we're going to leave this alone. That's why I didn't paint it. I didn't want anything to get inside there. So here we go. This is going to be the first Coal Forge I'm going to be using, and you're not going to see it, unfortunately, on this video because, you know what? I want people to have something to watch for, and this is just a very simple Coal Forge, and I know not everything's perfect. Some of my patches are a little bit, yes, creative. some of this stuff, it's hard to repair, like the cast iron on here. And if somebody really wanted to take it on, it is still fully repairable. Everything I've done is kind of adding on and reinforcing rather than destroying. So this is as far as we're gonna go. I was thinking, I have some other ideas in my head. Like I was thinking of stacking the bricks to make a little funnel, but I wanna see how this works first. I've never coal forged before, so I'm a little iffy on how it's gonna go. I understand the concepts. I've forged before, but always propane. So I wanna play with this first, start a couple fires, play with it a bit before I make any more permanent additions to this system. So this is as far as this video is gonna go. So if you wanna see it actually fired up, you're gonna have to watch for the first forging video, which should be coming out relatively soon, hopefully. Well, if you like this video, why don't you do a favor, hit the like button. Each video takes more effort than a lot of people think. And also, anything to do with fireproof is very expensive. So it really helps us out if you hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from the Random Maker, or even the first time I'm going to be coal forging, which is going to be on video, and I have no clue how that video is going to go. But if you want to see that, hit the subscribe button. If you have any ideas for projects or stuff you want to see here at the Random Maker from any of us here, just put a comment in the comments below. It's as simple as that. And you know what? I want to go get this outside and let's see if this actually can light a fire. Well, maybe not today, but you get the idea. Until next time, let's get making.